G Media, emerging powerhouse ad agency. Let's talk a little bit. Lots going on.
There's
in
a
media.
lot going on. I can't even keep up today.
So, and today has really been just an explosion day. Really, the most dominant media company in the world, 2 billion plus users. There's only 1.2 billion televisions. They have 2 billion users, and it looks like the wheels might be rotating a little differently. I don't want to say they're coming off because this is a massive company.
I don't know.
Who has massive influence and power. Let's talk about it. Facebook, FTC is going to do an investigation. We've also seen major advertisers in the last few days really push back about the alignment of their ads with content, both on Facebook and on Google.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think there's definitely a lot going on since this past weekend and the weekend before. I mean, you look at just Facebook stock today.
Yeah.
I think we were at I think it bottomed out at 150. I think we ended the day closer to 160.
I'll take a little peek.
People are really actually feeling the impact from, obviously from a consumer standpoint and from an advertiser perspective.
Yeah.
And people are deleting their Facebook accounts.
Yeah. Is that real though? I mean, I'd love to see the real numbers. I've seen a couple people on there. I can guarantee the 2 people I've seen, they'll be back in about a week and a half. One's a political operative. It's oxygen to him. He lives his life there. So it sounds good. He'll be back in a week. Here's the thing. I can no longer talk to my granddaughter. I can no longer decide where we're going to dinner with my girlfriends this weekend. It is really the most important communications tool for the vast majority, and it's not a close. We'll talk about Pew numbers in a minute.
Sure. I think that's all valid, but when you hit that point, where you say, okay, this is the tool that I use to keep in touch with my family. I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it.
Sure.
How do you feel about your privacy being infringed on that?
So, listen, I actually read it when I signed up. They're pretty explicit when you sign up. They say to you, and it's not just Facebook, it's Twitter, it's everything. Everything you put on here is ours. That's literally what the legalese says. Says photos are ours, data is ours, and this is no secret. The manipulation of what's called the token, the data box within your personal Facebook has, literally 32,000 different data points, and programmers to advertisers have had access to it the entire time of Facebook.
Sure.
And what I think people are reacting to is A, I'm not sure they all understood it, and B, it's becoming political football.
Absolutely.
Now, right?
I mean, this is actually, we're hitting a point now where we're looking at a platform through Cambridge Analytica that could actually, we're looking at something that actually could have influenced Americans on how they voted and swayed them.
Sure, but it's also a fair game. I mean, if you're in the Clinton, I talked to top-level Clinton people after the election, and they were kicking themselves for not deploying better technology, better leverage of social media to be able to. They were outdated. They were still buying a lot of TV, and I talked to a senior Trump person. They were 10 points back in North Carolina at one point. The Clinton campaign was dropping 2,200 gross rating points a week in the North Carolina TV. The Trump team went all Facebook in, and they pushed right by and won North Carolina, a key swing state. It reminds me a little bit of crying when Obama won now 9 years ago. They had mastered direct mail. They had mastered, they leveraged technology and data analysis to be able to really identify swing voters and take advantage. Sanders' campaign, great at fundraising. Listen, technology gives campaigns, businesses, and everybody else.
It does, but when does it hit that point where there's also a moral compass and we're breaking our own rules? So when Facebook's potentially breaking their own policies, I have to sit back and say, even from a consumer standpoint, this isn't necessarily fair game. So it's really kind of looking at it from both angles.
Yeah.
So from an advertising perspective, I obviously want to use a platform that's going to attract my mass audience. From a consumer standpoint, I'm not sure how much I'm willing to share.
So it's there now. You're not getting it back.
Getting it back.
You are not.
And if you had an Android phone, forget it, because we've taken everything from you. That's the other topic that's going on. We've literally taken all of your information. We know who you're talking to on the phone.
So listen, right now Mark Zuckerberg is looking at twin pictures going back for, how old are they now?
2.
They're 2. So he has 2 years packed full of twin pictures.
I'm not deleting my Facebook.
You are not deleting.
Without question, you will continue to see pictures of the kids, and probably for that reason only. But you know, I mean, I think it's okay though, because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You probably don't know what's going to happen, or maybe you do and you're not sharing it with me. Let me know after this. But you know, we have a generational gap now where people are going to be going to the They're going to the Snapchats.
Well,
and
I'll make the
Instagrams.
analogy. Listen, when TV started off, there was not the level of federal regulatory licensing.
Sure.
Because it was brand new and nobody knew what it was, and nobody knew that it was wrong to fix game shows or radio to pay people for a playlist and things like that. I think what you're going to see over the next, and probably less so under the Trump administration, which is not a very strong regulatory administration, but you're going to see the emergence of some real regulatory structure and some decisions on making people's privacy have some level of protection. But I do think that people really need to be realistic about when they use any of these tools or really function on the internet. You really almost in every situation are signing up and agreeing to licenses and structures that allow that person who built the sandbox to have access and you can call it leverage or manipulate your data.
Sure. No, absolutely. And you know what it prompted me to think about with what's been going on over the past few weeks and even longer, but just over all of this privacy concern and regulations is from an advertiser's standpoint and from a client's standpoint. What it actually brings me back to is, don't worry about the channel. You want to worry about all the channels, but where you really want to be sharing your knowledge is between your client and your agency. So we keep our information so close to the vest because we're so petrified of sharing anything, right? About our brand, our own brand, our company's brand. And what I've seen over the years is, even from the agency client perspective, is even the clients sometimes get nervous sharing that information with their agency. And that's the opportunity.
But they love what social media advertising has allowed them to do is really reduce waste, right? You buy a billboard, you have literally no idea. You get a DOT number of the car count, right? That's it. That is your entire data point of making a decision about a billboard, right? Versus literally being able to identify people who live in Barrington, Rhode Island, who drink Dunkin' Donuts, who are female, who are 35 to 54, and who like Oprah. And you can literally build a profile to talk to those people and exclusively those people. So unless there's a better mousetrap, I'm not sure that there's a macro change in behavior. I think advertisers are more at risk than users a little bit, or Facebook.
Of course.
Advertisers really need to be cognizant of how their brand is perceived in leveraging this data.
And that's really the way I look at it, is the knowledge sharing where it needs to happen is in that client agency partnership, and making sure that you're actually opening the gate there. You know, I mean, one of our top clients allowed me to go to, we're doing some educational workshops around the country, and they opened the door and said, please join us. Learn what we're learning at the same time. And it really allows us to tie those things into our creative briefs, into our brand briefs, and give them better paths to get to where they want to be for success through all of the channels.
Right. And listen, the last thing, the types of brands your company works with, some of the, you know, both the biggest brands in the country and also some, you know, emerging small businesses here in Rhode Island, they don't want their brand message associated with some YouTube video that's inappropriate to what their brand stands for. Now, listen, there's some brands, there's some companies, they're like, who cares?
Some don't care.
Right.
Yeah. Well, when you have a big enough spend, you're not going to worry about that small percentage.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely, you're going to be a lot more sensitive when you're a smaller, you know, mid-sized organization, and there's a lot coming out of your funding to support these efforts.
Listen, you can almost always tell who's most desperate in the media world by do they take adult entertainment advertising, right? I mean, it's almost the perfect measure as to desperation of revenue.
Yes.
most of our brands who advertise on GoLocal don't want their ad to be next to that ad on site.
Don't know any that do.
Yeah.
Don't know any that do.
Let's talk a little bit from a communication standpoint. You guys handle all forms of communication. One of the more disturbing things, and I think it speaks to their maturation and having a young CEO who's never been through this level of critique, is I think a lot of PR people are looking at how Facebook has handled this and said, not the best way to get out in front of this, and maybe Mark Zuckerberg wasn't the best messenger on this thing. Although some have claimed that Sandberg's the better messenger. She's in charge of revenue. She's the one who has set up this entire relationship. She came over from Google, probably the most successful person in media in the world,
yeah.
and has designed almost 2 brilliant platforms for driving revenue. But from a messaging standpoint, they are reactive, they're defensive. He's a tough messenger. You know, he's not the most warm and cuddly guy. Kind of looks like Bill Gates defending Microsoft's.
I didn't know anything about that. That's a good tie there. Yeah, I think I wouldn't want to be sitting in his chair.
Right.
I don't think, like you said, I don't think Facebook's going away tomorrow. But I think if I had my crystal ball, which I left at the dry cleaners today, I would have checked it. But no, I think there's a lot of scrutiny. Like, I think this is probably the worst it's been for them.
Oh, by far, 100%. I've always made the argument when people say, oh, somebody's going to take over Facebook, the only one who's going to be able to beat Facebook is Facebook. And this might be the first chink in the armor. Although there certainly is not a tool that in any way, shape, or form, you know, that Pew study that came out, they annually come out with an analysis of what people are using in social media, and it's just not a fair fight. You could really make the argument that all other social media together do not have the same lift, impact, interaction as Facebook does. And so, you know, who could ever take that? I mean, listen, if it's Instagram, Facebook wins again because they own Instagram.
Because they own Instagram.
Right.
You know, it's obviously this really strong platform that everybody is leveraging.
Yeah.
Because it's been one of the best platforms to leverage from an advertising standpoint, and we love it for our personal lives. But at the end of the day, I look at any client, and if there are some, and we have some clients that only use Facebook and a few other digital channels. But if you're not looking at your advertising and your marketing strategies from a full 360 holistic perspective, you are losing market share.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I mean, I think we can, you know, look at a lot of clients that are going downhill right now, and that is, we can, you know, Toys R Us, you can blame it on Amazon.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we're in a different world. There's been a shift. It is not about how great my product is.
Right.
It is who is my consumer and wrapping the product around that.
And to some degree, in the case of Amazon and Amazon Prime, it's efficiency. It's can I get it there, right? I mean, try and shop a lot of retailers, brick and mortar retailers. Even if you have the desire to do it, they simply don't have the inventory to meet your demand. I mean, it's nearly impossible to buy certain sneaker brands and things like that. You have to go online, and the drag towards it is ever and ever more. So listen, a lot of Rhode Island's a state of small business owners. How does a small business owner begin to adjust and absorb this massive amount of debate and data, besides hiring you guys?
Step one.
Right, step one. But how do they become smart on all these things? You know, it used to be you bought the newspaper, you bought the TV, and now it is such a much more complex. And how do you keep up with the technology, the measurements, and build the smart tools to be able to make those analyses?
Sure, and you know, at the end of the day, obviously, you know, money talks, and that's what keeps everyone going. But it's understanding your audience, it's understanding your consumer. Where are they? Where are they playing? What channels are they living in? And touching them there, but trying to also, I firmly believe in brick and mortar still. I still think there's opportunity for retail. I think yes, I love to shop online. I am an Amazon Prime addict.
They've dropped boxes at your home?
Our stack of boxes on trash day is quite high. But at the end of the day, if you're not engaging on any kind of a personal level, you're losing market share. I mean, look, we're talking now about, voice marketing and how
Yeah.
we're going to play in this space. I mean, there's huge opportunity to win over more of your consumers and gain more market share if you're looking at it from a holistic standpoint. You don't have to have a huge budget to play in all the spaces. You
Yeah.
don't have to have a billboard off of 95 and be in every trade.
Isn't, one of the keys I see, and if you look at the traits of those who have brick and mortar and why they're succeeding in a very, very difficult, complex time, is that once you enter that store, their level of service is just completely differentiated.
Yes.
It's high touch. Their sales folks are experts. They provide you with expertise into the product. They greet you in a different way. They hand you the bag and the receipt in a different way.
It's the experience. It's
right.
100% when you are going to have that opportunity where you're going into the store, God forbid a mall, but you're going into the store, that better be a good experience.
Right.
Because you absolutely won't go back. It was painful enough to go there.
Right.
But
you had to get there, and then to get this 18-year-old come over snapping gum.
that doesn't know anything about what you're doing,
Right.
just sending you off. It's look at it, even Walmart's going through their struggles.
Right.
Every American bought something at Walmart last year. Did you buy something at Walmart last year?
No.
One thing.
No, I
Never.
literally don't go to Walmart.
Why?
I cannot stand it.
Why?
It's just not a good shopping experience. Don't like the model. I think they've been maybe even more so because when they did it, local was still vibrant. That they were the biggest cause of the loss of local, and it was targeting, and they de facto manipulated pricing to get market share and then up pricing.
So do you not go from a moral standpoint?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Fair enough.
I probably haven't been to one in 2 or 3 years.
Would you buy from them versus Amazon if you could have the same experience? If it was cheaper?
No.
Still no. Okay,
No.
so that's moral. So
Yeah.
we'll stick with that.
Yeah.
But you look at a Target
Yeah.
where Walmart you can pick up in store, but you still have to go into the store.
Right.
You have to go through the customer service experience. I may look at a Target where you're going to come right outside and give me my TV.
Yeah.
And if it's better cost, I'm going to be right in the lot waiting for you.
Listen, I think Target's one of the companies that had the greatest opportunity 10 years ago. Could not figure out how to mesh its brick and mortar. Literally had 2 different companies. SKUs had different numbers. You couldn't do any of that integration. They were very, very slow in being able to make that. And I think it was a huge hit to them.
It was, but they've figured it out.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna put my chips in a basket, it's
Yeah.
gonna be with them, not even
Now,
Walmart or Amazon.
now with Amazon buying Whole Foods, and now rumored to be one of the entities looking to buy the Toys R Us locations, do they get back in the game? Not get back in the game, but do they get the opportunity to manipulate retail by bringing that efficiency and speed and all those things by being able to tap into that?
Well, I mean, I think they already did back in 2006 when they developed that partnership with Toys R Us.
Yeah.
Obviously hurt Toys R Us.
Yeah.
They won that lawsuit against Amazon, but obviously they didn't really quite look at all the fine print that they'd be competing with their own products at a lower price. But I don't know if that'll be an opportunity for them. I mean, it'll be interesting to watch. I'm sure they're not going to leave the toy space, but Toys R Us alone, I mean, being a mom of small kids, that was probably the most depressing store experience I've ever been in, whenever you'd have to actually return something.
Did any child ever go in there and not cry and scream?
I think it's unfortunate too, because I don't know, I might be aging myself, but I remember Toys R Us being an amazing experience as a kid. In like the 80s. It was phenomenal. It was the coolest place to go. And now it was definitely a depressing place to be.
Last thoughts on Pew's research, and if you haven't seen it, I don't care if you're a small business owner or you're in the business. It's a good read, and it's Pew. I think it's just pewresearch.com. The March 1st study that came out on social media usage, and that's ongoing benchmarked. Both annually as well as regular updates on a quarterly basis. You really do see who the haves are and the have-nots, and where the growth is, and where some of the interesting things are. Some gender, not so much, but on racial mixes, and where Latinos, if you're trying to talk to the Latino community, which social media platforms There's a strong belief that, the young have left Facebook and they're all Instagram and Snapchat. And, to some degree that's true.
They
But
did.
in some degree,
No, they did.
they're still
out.
there.
No.
The numbers are there. And in part of it, it's that ecosystem.
They may be there, but they're
they
not.
have to talk to their grandmother.
Well, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
We still have to post a picture, let mom know
Right.
I'm okay. Let's face it. When we were teenagers, did we want our parents to know necessarily where we were? And to see what party we're at? Of course. So if your parents are on this platform, it loses that excitement and interest.
You were in way wilder parties than I was. I was generally at church
Probably.
events, generally at church
Yes.
potlucks,
Yes.
things like that.
Charities.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Listen, as always, Megan, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Megan Decker from G Media on Business Monday. We're going to be right back with Saul Kaplan talking innovation.